Greetings, survivors and friends. Well, it's been over 12 years, but it's finally happening. That's older than most Rust cheaters. I mean, players. Yes, Rust is about to become a finished game thanks to pies. This is it. This is where it all ends. Anything added after this update will just be set dressing. And you thought there was a lot of new stuff last month. Well, hold on to your crusts, because soon we're going to need a scroll bar on the F1 item spawn menu with everything extra that's being added over on the Orcs 02 branch. And where do I start? Well, next update will be the Cooking 2.01, so here's the engine that'll be driving it all, the new cooking workbench. Washing up seems optional, but here you'll be able to cook up a number of recipes, each with their own buffs, and I'm glad to report, finally the team are embracing the world of pies, because that's mainly what you're getting, you lucky survivors. All the numbers I'm going to feed you are, dare I say it, subject to change, but here's the lowdown. The workbench is 75 scrap to research and costs 200 frags and 100 stone to craft at a tier 1. It doesn't currently require fuel, but you can fit a small box under it, and here you can craft chicken, apple, pumpkin, hunters, fish, survivors, and pork varieties of pie. There's also a bear pie, but it's not in the recipe list at the moment. Plus, you can also currently cook chicken and bake bread loaves, and you can see the ingredients needed for each one here. As well as being food, of course, all the pies provide you with some kind of buff, and the details could well change, but here's the gist anyway. Chicken pies gives a plus 5% better genes chance for 4 minutes when planting a seed. The apple pie gives 2 minutes of 100% better night vision, and you can see the difference here with increased night sight, visibility of node sparkles, and nice bright X's on trees. Pumpkin pie gives a plus 5% chance for 5 minutes of getting double loot when picking up a collectible. The hunter's pie doesn't seem to do anything right now. That could change, or it might get taken out, we'll see. Fish pie will increase player strength whilst fishing by 50% for 5 minutes, so you'll be able to reel them in faster, and it halves the rate at which your rod snaps. Survivor's pie gives you an extra 50% yield for 5 minutes when harvesting animal and human corpses. Pork pie boosts your metabolism by 200% for 5 minutes and increases your healing over time effect by 3 times, just like in real life. And bear pie, which isn't in the recipe list right now, gives a digestion boost, which doubles the bonus from all gathering buffs, so you could stack it with a pure or tea, say, to increase your yield from 50 to 75%. Etc, etc. See, I've been telling you for years that pies are good for you. Oh, and they're throwable, which is highly disrespectful to your food, of course, but they do a small amount of damage to the recipient. Then there's a bread loaf, which seems like it'll have its own use as a secondary ingredient. Sandwiches in the future, perhaps, but also gives plus 2 instant health, plus 30 calories, and plus 15 hydration, as well as being fishing bait. Over to the mixing table, and we're getting some new teas now as well. 3 strengths of both warming and cooling teas, which both increase and decrease your core temperatures respectively. Plus, there are going to be combined versions of both, which also affect your minimum and maximum core temperatures. And there's also a new crafting quality tea being added, and I'll get to that in a moment. It's not in the recipe list right now, and it doesn't look like the other recipes are finalised fully yet either. Onto the world of beekeeping now, and it all starts with a natural hive, which you'll find spawning on the occasional oak tree. You can hit this a couple of times to harvest it, which also naturally angers the bees. Each sting does some damage if you get too close to the swarm, which is currently static, although hazmat will protect you fully. Still hoping they do a beekeeper skin for that. The hive will always drop some honeycomb, which can be extracted for jars of honey, and these can be sold at the bandit camp for 1 scrap each at the moment. You can eat honey for minus 15 rads and plus 60 calories, and although it's not in any recipes at the moment, interestingly, the description says it's great in tea, and I'm told it will be added to some tea recipes soon. Honeycomb will also sometimes contain a nucleus, and this can then be placed inside the next new deployable, a beehive. It's a workbench level 1 item costing 20 scrap to research and 200 wood, 50 cloth and 1 tarp to craft. As long as the bees are happy, they'll produce honeycomb, and the beehive panel shows you what the current situation is. This doesn't appear to be fully set up yet, but they prefer to be outdoors, yet they also want to be dry, so perhaps it'll be best to keep them under cover. They're also not going to want to be too cold or presumably too hot, and the longer the nucleus is inside the hive, it will gain XP and level up, which I guess will lead to more honeycomb. This is where we're also getting a new weapon to terrorize people with, sorry, couldn't get my words out, the bee grenade. Bean can grenade? Sorry, the other use for a nucleus is to make a bee grenade. Currently, with a placeholder flashbang model, and research and crafting's up in the air as of recording. When thrown, it will produce a swarm of angry bees that will chase players and attempt to sting them. Again, hazmats protect, and bees will stay away from flames like campfires and torches. But players can rid themselves of the bees either by getting wet somehow in water or by splashing themselves. Sadly, smoke grenades don't seem to do anything, although you'd think that'd make sense, which is probably why it'll never get added. Chicken coops are here now too, for those of you who need the constant sound of clucking to drown out your crippling tinnitus. They're a default item costing 200 wood to craft, and they have a footprint of 1 foundation. Chickens will now drop eggs in the wild if a player's nearby, although they despawn quite quickly, but if you grab one, you can hatch it inside the coop. You can have up to a maximum of 4 chickens, all of which will be assigned random names, although you can name them yourself. A happy chicken is a productive chicken, so you'll need to feed them berries, apples, bread, grubs, worms, granola bars, corn, potatoes, pumpkins, or wheat. They're not picky. They'll also need water, and you can pet them to increase their love meters. They also seem to have new models that are much higher quality, and as long as you look after your needy chickens, they'll give you a steady supply of eggs. If you don't, they'll start taking damage and die, and of course, you can always kill them if you fancy some McNuggets. Food spoilage is coming in, although eggs are exempt. Food will need to be kept in a powered fridge to slow down the spoiling time, which is something you can now see in the info panel for the food, although this doesn't seem to be properly implemented yet. Horses are also going to be getting some food buffs too, apparently. A dung production bonus if you feed them bread, and a gallop speed modifier is being added to apples.
Hey.
Oh, hi, Grammar Horse. Haven't seen you in a hot minute.
Look, there's no time to explain. Get on.
What?
It's an emergency.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Yes, told you it was an emergency, didn't I?
I used to know a girl called Emergency. You don't think it's anything to do with her, do you?
Was she bad at spelling?
Awful.
Could be then.
Technically, isn't this a job for Texture Chicken?
Who, me? Yeah, I'm onto it too.
Wait, is that the same voice you had last time we saw you?
I don't know.
Well, look, I'll mention it to the team, but they're very busy with making pies and beehives and DLCs, you know. It's a full-time job. It might not be an emergency for them. Anyway, armor slots are something that's kind of working on Auto 2 now as well. When you craft certain items of clothing and armor, there's a chance that they'll have up to 3 armor slots in them. And this is where another new tea can help. The crafting quality tea can give you an extra 50% quality chance boost for 30 minutes and increase the likelihood of getting more armor slots. I haven't tested all clothing yet, but it appears to be mainly on hazmats and upper body clothing and armor, so you could wear a burlap shirt with a road sign jacket, for instance, to give yourself 6 slots. There are several types of insert coming in. They don't all have models yet, and the values are probably placeholder, but there's wood and leather, which give basic protection, metal, which is a bit better, asbestos, which should grant some protection against fire, and lead, which gives rad protection. The effects stack too, so 1 lead insert will give 5% rad protection, and 3 will give you an extra 15%. The item ownership system's going live here too, and things you craft will show your name above the info panel. This is also going to apply to things you catch with fishing traps and rods, along with items bought from vendors and dug up with metal detectors, etc, etc. Interestingly, it will also say who spawned it. For instance, if it was given by an admin, or worse. Note, there will be a Convar to disable this feature, which I'll stick in the description, and streamer mode will also cover over the names for anonymity. By the way, how are you getting on with primitive mode and all the I lived in a battering ram for a week videos? According to some people, it's not primitive enough, and to them I say, have you tried the console edition? Anyway, there are some new growable crops. Firstly, wheat, which gives you wheat and can be eaten on its own or made into bread as mentioned, but also 3 types of flowers are being added. Orchids, sunflowers and roses. You'll find all of these growing in the wild, and they can be grown at home, just like everything else. There's a vase item coming in for displaying them, which doesn't seem to be live as of recording this, but what has been added is this, a single plant pot. costs seem to be the same as a large planter each, so that'll probably change. Plus, it's possible to fit 25 of them on a foundation, so I'm guessing there'll be some kind of adjustment to that too, as that's way too much fun, surely. As mentioned last week, there's a new engineering workbench coming. It's 125 scrap to research and 500 wood, 100 frags and 50 scrap to craft at a tier 1 workbench. This is basically going to have all the electrical, plumbing, industrial and car-related stuff consolidated into it instead of in the other benches, and as a result, the path to get certain items will be different. Note where the auto turret is. Drones are getting buffed next patch. The control range is being extended to 600 meters with a max range of 750 meters, and drone health will be doubling from 100 HP to 200 HP. Last week I showed the new hoppers coming next patch, so watch that if you haven't already as I go over all the details there. However, in addition to that, they do also fit on both versions of the storage barrels, and I did have a couple of questions in the comments that I'll test for you now. First of all, do rugs block them? And the answer is no. And secondly, will they pull in live C4 that lands near them? And that's a no. Getting a bit hopeful there, I think. Same story with grenades. You'll have to trust me on that. I also showed triangle planters last week, and in addition to that, there's now a railroad version, and you'll now be able to reskin planters to this with the spray can if you have the DLC. And as shown last week, there were a lot of Hack Week projects being worked on, and although that's come to an end now, there's some extra footage that I can show you. Firstly, the drawbridge that would fit in a wall frame, and that would work pretty much exactly like the Siege Tower ones. An extendable version was toyed with the same HP as a garage door, but if it ever gets implemented, it might just be a static length version like this. I think it'd be a great addition. Secondly, Paddy was working on some new gestures such as peace, love heart, camera frame, and also chef's kiss, which I now have the footage of. But in addition to this, he was playing around with some interactive gestures, which might be something that will get worked on in future. So please let me know what you think to these. Please leave a like and a sub if you enjoyed this vid, and tell me in the comments what you think to all the new stuff arriving in a couple of weeks. What do you love? What do you hate? There are no right or wrong answers. You can support me here with super thanks, YouTube memberships, and via Patreon, and you'll find links below to all my socials, including my Steam group. Would love to see you there. I'll catch you all soon, but in the meantime, keep calm and stay rusty. Cheerio. Terraria